Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and welcome to Patron Hangout number 197. Welcome everybody who is here in the chat room. And if you'd like to be in the chat room, please do click the link below and join Patreon. $5 a month, and you can come to 8 live shows. But you don't have to do that to see my videos. All of them are public once I finish the lives. And you can just subscribe and click the bell so you get notifications and like the videos. Okay. Hi, everybody who is... I just thought you might want to see that intro over again. Oh my God. My finger slipped as I was crossing over to the comments section. There you go. See? Oh my God. Oh, you got the... So everybody, you can see and hear me, right? Even after the extra little blurb in there. Just want to check on that because I actually had issues with the internet today, and it would not, the StreamYard wouldn't work today at all for like 3 hours, and finally it was adjusted. Okay. Excuse that little extra blurb in there. I was like, my hand is... So anyway, oh, you saw that my pig video, huh? Somehow I recommended there ended up a video about me and my potbelly pig. Oh, and I look so young in it too, don't I? Because that was, wow, at least over 20 years ago. Yeah, I was younger and thinner. And yeah, that's my potbelly pig, Gwendolyn. She lived to 20 years, and she was happy in my home and outside my home, hanging around, and all the neighborhood loved her. And then the government became aware of her and decided that I should get rid of her at 20 years old. And so there was a big, I started a Save Gwendolyn the Pig project. And yeah, so yeah, that's 40 years old. Wow. That's pretty fun. So the what state? Oh, the damp state. Hi, Cheryl Smith. Damp state. Who else just came in? Taylor just came in. Hi, Taylor. Welcome back, wherever you've been, and hopefully in a good place. Okay, let me calm down here. All right, let's get to a couple pleasant things before the rest of the news. Oh yeah. They lie when they sold those in the days when they were selling potbelly pigs. They would tell you that the thing would only get this big. And I think I saw the pig on potbelly pig on the Tonight Show, Johnny Carson, and back in the day it was Johnny Carson, and it was this cute little potbelly pig, and I was like, oh, it would be so nice to have a little cute little piggy running around the house. So I went out and we bought a potbelly pig, brought it back, and it was this big, but it was a baby, and then it grew up to be a 300-pound pig, and scared the crap out of people. But it was, a huge pig. But she was always very... I mean, I loved my pig. She was wonderful, and she was housebroken. She never went to the bathroom in the house ever. She was a great pig, and she would sort of snort or make noise to let us know it was time to go outside. And we just open the door, and she'd just go out, lay around in the front yard, and people would drive by and go, "What is that?" And they'd stop and look because there was no fence, so she would just wander around, and yeah, she was great. And then she come back in, and she made a bed in the downstairs closet, pulled all the blankets in there, and made herself a bed. And yeah, she was a good pig. But yeah, they get to be 300 pounds, which is why so many people, when they get the pigs, give them up and they send them off to potbelly pig farms, because they're like, oh, this is too big for my house. And they get rid of their pig, which is really sad. So yeah, there you go. One ended up at the nature center. They thought it would stay small. Exactly. Yeah, that's, it's unfortunate that a lot of times we don't, before we get a pet, especially in days past before the internet, the information might have been limited. So you just kind of guessed and you say, oh, I can get this pet. And some idiot at the pet store who doesn't actually own a pet would tell you how to care for it. And when I was a teenager, I got my first iguana, and I thought it ate lettuce and needed a light bulb. Well, that's what kills them. I mean, they need a big, huge terrarium. They need all kinds of fruits and vegetables, and sometimes a little bit of cat food or dog food. They need a lot of different stuff. And they also need sunlight, and you have to get a sun lamp and all that stuff. And then when I got smarter, my iguana lived for 12 years. So, but a lot of times people just get pets and they have no clue what they're in for. So it's unfortunate. So, oh, there's a good point too. Too many people also don't research dog breeds before getting cute little puppies. Exactly. They may not even have, or they may not be around enough to care for it. If it's a dog that needs to be walked a lot and they're working all day long, have to put it in a cage, or there's all kinds of reasons that things don't go well with people and pets. And yeah, then they find out that there's a lot of work, like children, and like with children, so theoretically you can't put those children in cages, although some people do, and that kind of thing. But with pets, people get away with a lot more, shall we say, improper rearing of animals as opposed to children, in the sense that it's just an animal, right? But then again, there's a whole lot of children who seem to be not very well taken care of either. So maybe I'll take that back. Okay, now let's see if I can not click the wrong thing this time. All right. Just since we're talking about animals, yes, I know you want to know about the kitty cat. So here is here is my feral cat, Mac, and he's now coming to lick the food off my hand. And you see, he gives me the usual evil look. It's like, okay, can I trust coming near you? And then he makes his move. And then he licks the food off my hand, and then he eats the bowl of food, and then he gives me a stink eye, and then he just leaves. So I have his food next to me right now. So when he comes in, he'll just eat the food and take off. So that's what he does. People are so dumb. It's just it's just like anything else in life. We don't often think into the future enough. That's why people get married too quickly. They let somebody come move into the house too quickly. They take a job they shouldn't take. They do things they shouldn't do. I mean, yeah, people are very impatient human beings. I did not see the poor zebra, no, but we did have zebras running around our neighborhood. We were famous for that. We had some guy at a zebra farm, and right down the street in Maryland. And one day somebody's driving along and they said, I saw a zebra on the side of the road. What? And so my daughter, who was with the police, they were going around trying to deal with the loose zebras. And she was trying to actually get one to bring home and put in the field with the llamas and the alpacas. So, but yeah. But anyway, that's that. And the one other thing before I go to the news is I just want to show you, this is my latest. I'm stuck on it. This is my latest my pastel. This is the Malecon in Cuba, and it's kind of impressionistic view of the Malecon. So that's my latest picture. So finally got back. I haven't done anything in a while, and I finally decided here's a kind of a close up of it, so you can see a little bit better maybe without the glass. But anyway, that's the Malecon, and yeah, so I'm back to doing some pastels again. Thank you very much, Cauliflower. Appreciate it. Okay, now let's get to the news. All right, I want to start with, of course, everybody's talking about the plane crash. And the reason I want to talk about the plane crash in India is for two reasons. One is because I go to India a lot. And Air India Boeing Dreamliner took off from Ahmedabad, and it was going to the UK from Ahmedabad, and it just took off and crashed right away, like within a minute. And it's always a time when I'm flying, because I always say it's actually more dangerous taking off than landing. And so I'm always, whenever we take off, I'm always like, go up, go up, go up, go up, go up, go up, go up. That's what I always think, which is why I go to the bar before I get on the plane. I'm just always terrified of the takeoff. And here was a good example of that. It didn't make it. And that's a horrible, horrible case, a horrible situation. Just in case you don't know, there were 242 people on board when it crashed. 241 died. One man walked off the plane, and no one has a clue how this guy survived. It was just freaky. It was just a freaky thing. And I hope nobody's going to say something stupid like, well, God must have a special plan for you, because didn't he have a special plan for the other 241 people? I mean, I always hate it when I hear that. It's like, it just, all those people were precious. So that he survived the plane crash, I'm sure it's just pure luck. And he should be thankful he did. But families of 241 people lost their loved ones. So that's just, don't go there with that. I always find that irritating. It's like, oh, I prayed and that's why I was saved. Well, other people were praying too. Believe you me, they were all praying and they crashed. So, and then they also landed on top of a dining facility at a medical college, and at least 5 of the students had died, and they were eating dinner and crashed on top of them. And 50 are injured, and as far as how many are going to survive after all the injured people come in from the college, we don't know. All the doctors, the medical students. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. I just, I felt, I've been on Air India, I don't know how many times, because I've gone back and forth to India. And when I'm in India, I've flown, from location to location in India on Air India. And so one of the first things I want to say is, when this kind of thing happens, along with everybody's expressing their sadness at this and prayers to the family and all that, you get people who now want to analyze what happened, and they don't know crap. Like people have asked me before about the airplane airplane that just went missing, and it's never been found. The famous missing airplane flight. I don't know, because first of all, I'm not a pilot. This is an area where I lack, and I have no ability to analyze the evidence. And I'm going to talk about in just a second, I'm going to talk about the Tiffany Sllayton case, because I was also asked to analyze Tiffany Sllayton. But my problem with analyzing Tiffany Sllayton was that, I don't live in the area. I do not understand. She was the one who was a missing hiker for like 3 weeks. I don't understand the terrain there. I'm also not a hiker. I'm not a backpacker. I'm not a camper. I mean, I've done some of those things, but pretty minimally and without any expertise. So I can't really analyze things the way somebody else could. So one of the things you have to be very careful about whenever you analyze crime or anything in the world is if you do not understand the evidence, you do not understand culture, you do not understand some things like how an engine works or whatever it is you don't understand. You don't understand it. You don't understand it. Now, a lot of times when the police detectives run into something, that's why they contact a blood spatter expert or a ballistics expert, because they do not have all of that knowledge and that ability. So you connect with other people to get information. I've done that on my cases where I'm like, I really don't know. So let me talk to somebody who would have more knowledge than myself. And it's always important to understand when you don't know something. And I see so much of this happening with the Karen Reed case, because I don't know how many comments I've gotten which said, Pat Brown, I've always loved you, but now you're an idiot because you think Karen Reed is guilty. And how could you not possibly understand? Do you even understand the evidence? They asked me. And I'm like, between the two of us, I'm going to say I probably understand the evidence more than you because you're a layperson who has never worked with criminal profiling or crime scene analysis. So I'm going to guess that I probably come a little bit more ability. But then because they don't agree with me because they're believing whatever they're believing. And I'm not saying you have the right to believe Karen Reed is innocent. I'm not saying you don't have that right. But I get attacked hugely because somebody who does not have knowledge of how things work will say they know when they don't. Now, so the Air India thing is a great example of this. First thing I saw come out, somebody put up a thing that showed a person on an Air India plane. It was an Indian man. And he was going, Sam, nothing works on Air India, And they put it up there. It came originally from the Daily Mail that this was the plane that just crashed. It was not the plane that just crashed. It was a different plane. And it was an Air India plane, and the guy was complaining about the Air India plane. Now, I have been on some Air India planes that a few things have been less than perfect, shall we say. Maybe there's a frayed seat. Some people complain that its chair didn't work properly, or the phone didn't work, or whatever the heck the complaint is. But that complaint, I've seen that on American planes just as well. Absolutely seen that on American planes where things do not work. And then there was another one that said, oh, and then the people on the plane act this way. Have you ever been on Spirit Airlines? Greyhound in the sky. I mean, horrible behaviors, horrible. So then there's people come out and they're like anti-India Airlines, Air India, but like all India Airlines are garbage. I mean, they don't have tons of airline crashes. I mean, the last crash I knew of before this was, in Washington, D.C. Helicopter crashes into plane landing. That was right here in the United States. So it's not like Air India is crashing lots of planes. They have very skilled pilots. They have skilled mechanics. They do their job. So there's this suddenly anti-Air India, suddenly anti-people on the plane or the pilots or whatever, all based on absolutely zero knowledge. And why did the plane crash? I do not know. Nobody knows. It could be something faulty with Boeing. It could be pilot error. It could be a combo. It could be, I think Ahmedabad, it was like 100 degrees that day. It could be some weird weather issue. Sometimes it's a bird that flies in. There's things that go wrong and that we do not know yet what the issue was. And so I wish all these people out there who just want to spew a bunch of nonsense about something they do not even understand would stop doing it. So I don't know why the plane crashed. I just know it's very sad. So that's my thoughts on that. And then I'll get to Tiffany. Everybody wants to be the first to break a story. You can break the story. All you have to do is say the plane crashed and how sad it was. But you don't have to start analyzing things that you do not know how to analyze. Just some try Southwest Airlines. Sometimes Southwest, they're cheap airlines. Same thing with certain cruises. People are badly behaved on certain cruises because they're really cheap. And I'm not saying people who spend less money are necessarily more poorly behaved, but sometimes that's true. And the more money you spend usually for, fancier things, the more you're caring for it. That's kind of just a tradition, a thing across the entire world. It's just the way it is. But like I say, they pay for what you get sometimes. Have you been on the Airbus? I don't even remember what when I get on airlines, I just get on the plane. I never even know what the heck I'm flying on. It's just, all I know is that I've never been flying first class, and that has to change because I absolutely hate coach now. Hate it. Yeah, hate it. So leave it alone if you don't know something. And if you same thing with crime stuff. When I see people coming in, they're attacking me. It's not just a disagreeing or asking me a question like, Pat, you said this, but I kind of wonder about that. They attack me like, oh, I thought you were a good profile. And now I know you suck because they have suddenly decided they're an expert. So Tiffany, let's look at Tiffany because I was asked about Tiffany. And as I said, I just did I have suspicions? Yeah, I thought her story sounded a little unlikely, but I kept away from saying too much because I am not a person who knows the area or I say a big hiker or anything. But Tiffany, in case where's Tiffany? Where are you at here? There she is. And she's so see, this appears for, let's see, how long was it? 3 weeks, for nearly a month in the High Sierra. And then she's found. She wasn't rescued. They pointed this out. She wasn't really rescued because she wasn't actually in any danger. She was staying in this cabin and she wasn't even, physically was pretty much fine. She was brought to the hospital and was released within like 5 hours. If you've been out there starving and getting, she said that this avalanche thing hit her, and then she had to splint her leg. But yeah, when she gets to the hospital, her leg's perfectly fine. And she says a whole bunch of things that if she were truly in that condition, you'd probably be bringing her out in a body bag or she'd be in very, very sad shape. But she was like, hey, it's all good. So a lot of people were suspicious, but I left it alone because, again, I'm not really familiar with a lot of this stuff. However, this guy just did a show, and I'll try to link it below. So I actually watched the whole show, and I don't usually do that because I usually get bored. But it was a pretty long show, but it was well done. And it's called Talk of the Hill, and this was about the guy who does the show is called Jeff. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Aiello. He's the moderator of the show, or the host of the show. Shall we say host? He's the host, and he brought on John Zanoni, who was the Fresno County sheriff. Turns out they live in the area and they're friends. But so let me read you a little from the article here. A local filmmaker, Jeff Aiello, sat down for an exclusive interview with Fresno County Sheriff John Zanoni for an update on the mysterious case of Tiffany Sllayton. The 28-year-old hiker from Georgia was missing for nearly a month in the High Sierra. Her story of survival was considered a miracle by some, but highly questionable by skeptics. So then the sheriff comes on, he's clearing up the story. And he points out a lot of the things that did not make sense in her story. And based on what he was able to know about the location, which had very little snow in a lot of the places she claimed that it was like blizzard weather and all this kind of stuff. And that one of the key issues was that she claimed she couldn't get 911. She tried over and over again, but she was able to use the phone to find the nearest Starbucks. You have to have connection to be able to do that. That was one of the things, big red flags, as I pointed out. That was a red flag. The concept of that she was able to do what she could do. She had actually had so much damage to her leg, she needed to splint it. And so none of these things made a lot of sense to him. And I'm not going to go into everything he said on the show. So it's very interesting, actually. So I would suggest you go listen to it. It's really good. But he came to the conclusion that she did hike a bit. She did do some hiking. And he thought she was trying to meet this guy there. I don't know who the guy was, but she was trying to meet somebody, and somehow it didn't work out. So whether she was not able to complete the hike to the level she wanted to, and then ended up finding just refuge in a cabin. It was his belief that, yes, she did do some hiking. It wasn't that she didn't go up there and intend to do it. It's like she had some skills in that whole area. But he believes that she exaggerated and embellished her story. When they found her, she started making up Sherri Papini stuff, about what happened to her. And family had started a GoFundMe. And one of the concerns they had was when she was found, after she was found and was brought to the hospital and was released within 5 hours, they kept the GoFundMe going when there was nothing wrong with her. So there were a lot of curious things that it just appeared that she was a storyteller, shall we say. And then when people go there, I always find it interesting how if she embellished the story to the level that she embellished it, if this is what happened, both the host of the show and the host was, well, I think, I don't know who's nicer, the host or the sheriff about this. Police chief or sheriff, what is that, sheriff? They try to give her an out by saying things like, maybe she's a little Aspergery. So here we go with the autism rule thing again. This whole new thing, anybody who is a big fat lying piece of crap, when a person lies and manipulates people and takes advantage of them, suddenly they've got Alzheimer's. Even if they're murderers, they've got Alzheimer's. And I think all people who, I'm sorry, not Alzheimer's, autism. I'm going to use the Alzheimer's one for myself, though. Autism, sorry. Autism or Asperger's. There's claims for, everybody these days, who kills people, they say, oh, it's on the autism spectrum. Why? And then people have autism or have Asperger's are going, hey, stop it. Stop saying that all these people who are bad people, all these people who are liars and criminals are like me. They're not like me, because just because I have some level of autism, that doesn't mean I'm going to commit criminal acts or lie. And it's just amazing. It's like, this is the new go-to. And it's a way to like try to tone down, or maybe the person's not that bad. If Tiffany lied, and I'm not saying she did because I don't have proof, but they're saying she's not telling the truth. That what she said happened was unlikely to have happened. And if she's not telling the truth, that she's got a personality disorder. It isn't autism. And I wish people would stop going to the autism thing. So I forgot how long they actually were spending looking for, but they spent a lot of resources, including, helicopters and everything, trying to find her. And this is one of the problems with people who are playing like Sherri Papini. That mass amount of money and manpower is spent on somebody who's a liar. And in my opinion, they should have to pay back every penny that it cost the police to do whatever they did. They should be charged with every penny of that, along with a jail sentence. Because I think if you lie to law enforcement like that, now if you lie to the FBI, that is federal crime. But law enforcement, local police it gets a little wishy-washy. And a lot of times they just, especially if it's females, they just go, well, I guess she has some issues. And they pat her on the head and let her go. When she has abused the entire community, and that money that could be spent trying to find missing children, for example, is being wasted. So that I don't like that crap. That's interesting. Taylor says people on the spectrum are generally very literal and honest. I think that's a good point. Rarely fluff up stories and are typically a matter of fact. Well, they have. That's interesting because I tend to see that myself. So it's kind of the opposite of what they're claiming. So, yeah, very, very good. Yeah, exactly. They are pissed. Why shouldn't they be? I mean, okay. This is true though. Caitlin says people on spectrum are murderers as well now. Well, okay. Let me say yes and no. You can be a murderer and be autistic. Or on the spectrum, you can be, but it isn't because you're autistic. That's not why you're a murderer. It's the excuse that bothers me. That's the difference. It's like, okay, you've had a bad childhood, but you still murdered people. Oh, you were bullied. Bullying is like every time a person goes and kills off everybody in a mass murder, it's always, oh, he was bullied. She was bullied. I'm like, a person being bullied, it does not automatically make you into a mass murderer. I mean, everybody's gone through school and has some level of what now is called, I don't know, we have kind of exaggerated, I think, the concept of bullying these days. And a lot has to do, of course, you can be bullied when you're spend too much time with your phone and then you open up yourself to a whole bunch of people who are all talking garbage. That's a parental problem. Sorry to say. That's a parental problem because your child should be spending time with worthwhile people, worthwhile friends. And if you're just going to let them go out and just spend time with 50 pieces of garbage from their school, who don't have any merit to them, that's a parental problem, not a bullying problem. And that's your child. Your child should be in a good environment. Your child should have good friends. Your child should have good activities. And if you don't do you don't help your child have all those things, well, then maybe it's your problem. And you can't just keep pointing fingers at everything else. I mean, not that those other things don't exist, but you're the one responsible for your child's well-being. So, and it's tricky. I'm not saying it's not a difficult thing. It's very difficult. But these days, what we have is people saying every time somebody says, oh, you're fat, or, says something mean to you, you go out and you're a mass murderer because somebody said something mean to you. No, if you're a mass murderer, you're a psychopath. And maybe the reason they're bullying you is because you're a weirdo psychopath and you creep everybody out. So they don't want to be around you. And so we don't chicken or the egg thing. We don't know really what the issue is, but let's stop blaming, everything on autism these days. Oh, Lord. When will people learn it's almost impossible to mislead and deceive law enforcement? No, it's not. It's actually happens quite a lot, especially when you're in a society that says you must believe a victim. And we're seeing that in the court system. We're seeing it play out everywhere. You're supposed to believe the victim. And so now law enforcement is also very, very concerned about when they have their red flags go up for them. They're still like, I better not say anything. Now, sometimes sometimes they aren't fooled, but the problem is they still have to spend all the money. Sherri Papini, they were suspicious of Sherri Papini right away once she got found. But look how long it took to actually charge her. Really long time. That's a good point. Christoph says that's a difference between probability and causality. Yes, that's very good. Caitlin says, I was bullied relentlessly and I haven't even punched anybody in the face. It is, however, extremely destructive and awful. It's not nice. It's not nice. And of course, in my opinion, if you're a child and being bullied relentlessly, you have to get the child out of there because, I said this to people about a high school near me when my children were growing up and I was homeschooling them. And they said, why don't you send your child to that high school? And I said, look, my children haven't committed a crime. I don't know why they should be in a juvenile detention institution. Because that's how bad the school was to me. And I'm like, my children shouldn't be there. I'm sorry that any children are in that place because it seemed like a juvenile. It's like that's where all the juvies were, you know what I mean? They were, especially since they were trying to keep them in the regular schools. So your child walks down the hall. And I worked at as a sign language interpreter at a high school, top high school in the area, top high school. I was afraid to walk down the halls of the top high school. Now you ask if it was a top high school, how is this true? Well, what they did was they had the tag program students, the science and math kids. They had them in those little trailers outside the school, where they were their carpeted trailers. So they were all outside in those places. So their classes went on peacefully. Now, the problem they had was they were frightened to come into the school because then they got bullied when they walked through the hallways because they were not tough people. And I had my students, none of my students were out there. My students were deaf. So not that deaf people can't be in tag programs, but generally speaking, when deaf kids go to public school, the problem is that it's a communication issue. So they end up in just the normal math classes, normal science, normal whatever. So I was actually interpreting in the regular part of the school, and it was not good. It was not good, and I wouldn't send my kids there unless they were specifically in those trailers outside and maybe have protection going in and out of the dang building. So, but I know some people, the problem is, as parent, if sometimes you don't have choices, like let's say you're a single parent who is working, has to work, and you can't afford private school, you are screwed. Your kid probably does have to go to the public school, and that's the local one. And if you're lucky, the public school near you is good. If you're not lucky, it's not good. So you don't always have a choice. Sometimes you just, you do the best for your kid, but life interferes. You know what I mean? Life interferes. So, all right. But that's why I did not comment on that case. And sometimes why it's worth not commenting on certain cases when one is not really familiar with certain aspects of the case or how things really work. And this is what I see in the Karen Reed case over and over again. The concept of this huge conspiracy, like one person in the house got in a fight with John, the dog bit him, and then he punched him out or something for reasons which nobody has any good motive for. And then after that happened, everybody in the house lied that John ever entered the house. And then they helped carry him outside and dump him right on the front lawn instead of, take him down to the railroad tracks, or at least put him on somebody else's lawn. Put him in the street so it looks like I hit by a car. But no, these brilliant detectives just dumped him right in the front lawn of their own house that they supposedly committed this crime in, and got everybody to lie. And then they got everybody to lie, the EMTs and the medical examiner and every other policeman just came in and lied. Now, my daughter is a police officer. She's a police detective. She isn't going to be lying to cover up a homicide by some fellow officer. That's not what she's going to be doing. I mean, if she saw a fellow officer, let's say she saw a fellow officer and he was a little tipsy when he was driving, and she's like, you shouldn't have been out there. She would not look the other way. I'm just saying, but you know what I'm saying. So, you might look away for a small infraction, not her though, no. But I'm just saying that I can see somebody doing that. But for homicide, no. And the same thing we see true with the Madeleine McCann case. I don't know how many people think that Madeleine McCann, something happened in the apartment and the parents went to the local priest. Some people even think to the higher ups in the Catholic Church. And they got the priest and whoever else to help bury Madeleine in some safe place that would be covered up by the church or under the church, or some that the priests and these upper people up in the Catholic Church would be involved in. What? Now, they may have heard a priest may have heard a confession. Like Kate McCann could have gone in there and confessed to the police. To the priest. She could have gone in because it was on her heart. She said, we gave Madeleine the medication and she fell, and we didn't want to destroy her family, so we hid the whole thing. Now that priest cannot say anything, because I think there's different rules in different places, but confessions are not supposed to be able to. You're not supposed to be able to breathe a word of them. And at that priest supposedly there, that they say he had some real issues. He's like really seemed bummed or depressed or like freaked out. Maybe he did hear a confession, and he couldn't say anything. But he's not going to say, "Well, let me help you bury the body." I mean, that he's not going to do. A whole bunch of people aren't going to help the McCanns out, helping burying their child, the part of the Catholic Church. That's ridiculous. And this is where people start exaggerating what somebody will do in some kind of big, huge conspiracy cover-up. And it's nonsense. And that's not how things work. Now, there are conspiracies and there are people who will cover things up, but it's not done the way that people imagine it to be done. And once they imagine these things, then they ignore the evidence and don't understand what the evidence means. Now, I don't know what's going to happen in the Karen Read case. I think it's going to go to jury now, and we shall see whether the second time around the jury finds her guilty or not. And I have no idea whether they will, because it's always a crapshoot, because it's a civilian jury. So, yeah. That's interesting. The e-bike, yeah. I don't know. They haven't found the bike yet, but they have an idea where it might be, supposedly. Well, we shall see. And some people are like, "Where's this guy? Where's this guy?" Now, this guy's the man that allegedly, and pretty much most likely did, killed his 3 little girls. And those 3 little girls that should not have been ever left with him, because he was homeless and failing to complete the program stuff that he was required to complete. I don't know why the kids were alone with him, but they were. And then they were found dead. And now he's got skills. He's got survival skills. So they've been chasing him through the mountains, and they think they're getting close to catching him. So they haven't caught him yet. I'm just pointing it out because people say, "What about that case?" Well, eventually they'll either catch him or he'll kill himself. One of the two. Either way, it's not going to bring those 3 little girls back. And that's a real shame. I mean, yeah. Well, I guess the whole thing is the same thing with psychologists, psychiatrists. There's also an issue there as well. Supposedly, if I'm correct how this goes, and if you're a psychiatrist, you can tell me I'm wrong. I'm trying to remember now, because I'm not a legal person. I'm not an attorney. But I think if somebody tells you they're going to murder somebody, you can then go to the police and say, "Look, my patient just said they're going to murder their wife tonight." However, if he's already murdered his wife and then tells you about it, that's a different situation. I don't know if it's all true across all states and every country. I don't know how that works. But the same is true to some extent for people who are supposed to be clergy, that they have you should be able to go to clergy essentially and talk to the clergy about what's happened, and in your confession, it's not supposed to go out of there. So, yeah. The mom's lawyer said there were no red flags, and he says they started to struggle with mental health. Yeah, he did not do what he was required to do. He was supposed to go to this whatever program it was. I forgot. Was it anger management or this is some substance abuse stuff? Didn't do what he was supposed to do, and he's living out of his vehicle. I'm sorry, if, in my opinion, if you're living out of your vehicle for whatever reasons, you do not have a stable life, and you should not be. I mean, some people say, well, just because you lost your job, you're living out of your vehicle. Why can't you see your children at McDonald's or meet them at the zoo, go to the zoo with them? And then I see the point there. But if the reason you're not living out of your vehicle is because of other issues, besides just you became unemployed, but you've got issues you've got mental issues, your children shouldn't be alone with you, period. One day if you get your act together but obviously didn't have his act together. Just being too nice. That's a good point. Being too nice is a bad choice. And that's true. No, they have not caught him yet. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I have to say, I really don't know. I mean, again, I'm not an attorney. I'm a profiler. So I don't have the legal, and I don't know whether it's different legally from state to state, from country to country. I mean, I would think if I had a child I brought to a therapist and that child says, I want to kill my family, I kind of want to hear about it, or I'm going to go shoot up the school. I personally think, I don't know if the law covers that or not. I think the law would say they would have to speak to somebody about it. And here's my thing. If I were that person, ethically, I would have to do something. I mean, this is always an issue. If you're in a situation where the code of ethics for your profession say you cannot say something, this is problematic. And I had that problem when I was a sign language interpreter. There were times when, I knew that person was lying to the doctor. I knew the person was selling drugs, and they were trying to get drugs off the doctor to sell. And the point being that a hearing guy could come in, and this particular person would always fake having a sickle cell, come in, oh, I'm in so much pain. Now, if a hearing guy came in and said, oh, all this pain, he wouldn't have an interpreter. He'd go, oh, and the doctor would say, what do you need for your pain? And he'd go, oh, I need this, I need Demerol, I need Percocet. And the doctor would give him the Percocet. And then he would get out of the hospital and go sell the Percocet on the street. When a deaf person comes in with the same thing, and I'm their interpreter, it is stated that I am not allowed to hint to the doctor that this guy's going to sell the drugs, because I'm there. I'm very well aware of what he's doing, because when the doctor walks out of the room, he just pops up and he's smiling and laughing. And when the doctor comes back in, he's in pain again. So I know he's playing a game, and he doesn't care that I know, because he knows I can't say anything. I did not say anything in those situations, because I looked at it and say, well, the doctor has to make the determinations whether this person's a liar or not. And he's going to do this stuff. I did not say anything in those circumstances. However, if I thought the person was going to harm somebody by, because I had a Munchausen syndrome by proxy woman show up. And I think she already poisoned her son. And then she came to the hospital and was sitting next to him. And I'm watching it. And I went to the staff and I said, look, do you understand what Munchausen syndrome by proxy is? Do you understand? And I said, do you understand the signs of it? You might just want to check on whether the condition he's in could be caused by something that the mother might have had access to at the nursing home she worked at. And 2, whether she should be alone in the room with him. I did speak up that time, and I broke the code of ethics. I wasn't supposed to say anything, but I felt I was in the room with this young man, and he looked at her like she was like a black widow spider, which she pretty much was. He looked at her like she was evil, and I'm like, they were just not aware of any of this stuff. They were just blinded to it. They didn't see what she was, and it. So I did say something, because I was at that time studying profiling. I said something. Was I in violation of the code of ethics? Probably. but ethically, I couldn't shut up. I just couldn't. I thought if this kid dies, and I didn't say anything, and so I felt I had to say something. So yeah, I think it's tricky thing sometimes when you're in that situation where it's what do you do? Yeah, but yeah, so yeah, it's tricky. Let's say, I want to talk. Let's go to where is she? Where'd she go? Where is she? Oh, there she is. Oh yeah. Okay, we do have to talk about Sherri Papini because my God, she does not quit being a fabricator of many things. So Sherri Papini, she says there's a bunch of different things I think are really amusing that have just come out about Sherri Papini. One is what she paid. Remember, I said what she paid for that documentary, and my belief is she was. And then the question is, well, how much of that money would she receive if she was paid for the documentary? And so did it matter if she was paid or not? Because she owed a whole lot of people a lot of money, and she's going to owe it if she makes money. Okay, so let me find the thing that about how much money she'd have to give up. Where is it? Okay. Oh, here we go. All right. Did she get paid for doing the investigation ID documentary? All right. The short answer is probably, but there is a catch. According to KRCR News, Papini owes over $300,000 in restitution for funds used in the disappearance and also therapy after she returned home. Well, I'm sure that therapy didn't do her any good. That restitution is to be paid to the federal government, the Shasta County Sheriff's Office, the California Victims Compensation Fund, and her former mother-in-law, Kathleen Papini, who was granted over $50,000 in a lawsuit she filed against Sherri for the money she provided for her legal issues in 2022. Since the priority for the bulk of the restitution funds goes toward the payment agreement of her plea deal, the government can garnish Sherri's wages and any other funds she receives and this includes 75% of all payments for memoirs or media appearances that exceed $5,000 per the outlet. Okay, so let's say, 75%. Let's say she gets $400,000 for doing that documentary. You know that $300,000 she owed? She just got rid of that debt. And guess what she's got on top of it? $100,000 to play with. She sells that crappy book of hers, which is not being sold by a major publisher, so I don't think it's going to make much money. But if she did get a major publisher to do it, and she made $500,000, yeah, she could pay off a whole pile of her debts and have money to spare. Now, hopefully, ID didn't pay her that kind of money. Let's say they only paid her like $100,000, which would be great because documentary people hardly pay anything. First of all, they don't like to pay at all. Documentary, never. They always say we have a budget we can't pay, which is why I don't do many of them because I refuse to work for free. So I do get paid when I do documentary work, but it's not very much. I mean, it's in the thousands, but it's nothing like $100,000. I mean, it's not even $50,000. It's not $10,000. It's a small amount, which basically covers some of my expertise and the time I put in. And if I have to travel, it covers my travel time. So I get money, I get paid, but not hugely. And it's only because I make them pay me. And if they don't want to pay, they just go find somebody who will do it for free. So how much they pay Sherri Papini, I don't know. It depends whether they want her so badly and they're going to make so freaking much money on that documentary that they're willing to pay her $500,000. Because I've seen some huge amounts of money be paid out to criminals and crooks, and especially like the Anthony family, they made a lot of money. So even if they garnish her stuff, she could still be left with a nice piece of money. And then more opportunities, because once you do one documentary, other documentary people want you, and then another publisher wants you. So, so it's worth it for her to do it, even if she's just, and of course it's worth it. It's worth it for her to do it because she loves to watch people fall for her stuff, which I don't know that they did, but anyway, they do need to stop giving her airtime, but they make money off of her. That's why they do it. They don't care about ethics. They care about money. And that's a sad thing, but it's very, very true. Oh, all while she slanders the ex-boyfriend. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, they made the other one. Yeah. There's three things that have come out. The ex-boyfriend now. Well, okay. Do I feel sorry for the ex-boyfriend? No. Why? Because if you already knew what she did and you hooked up with her after that, you deserve everything she does to you. I have zero sympathy because it's not like Keith didn't know. He married her and he didn't realize how bad she was. But the ex-boyfriend, that was after everything came out. So there's no excuse. He's got no excuse. Let's see. Where is it? Okay, I gotta find the ex-boyfriend one. Where is the ex-boyfriend? She got thrown out of his house. She was living in his house. Oh, here we go. Okay. So this one, she's being evicted by her ex-boyfriend. And why is that? Okay. Let's see. Papini has reportedly been living in a house in Shingletown, about 30 miles east of Reading, that is owned by someone she was dating. So the property owner, Sean Hibden, claims that Papini had expressed interest in purchasing the property, but they did not reach a deal. She has not been paying rent. Well, he's been having sex with her, I assume, if it's an ex-boyfriend. And Hibden reportedly gave her a notice of eviction in January, giving her 30 days to vacate. She tells the court that Hibden has been, quote, harassing her, and he wanted to force her into an unfavorable deal for the property. It seems that Papini and Hibden were in some sort of relationship since right after Papini got out of prison. So I don't feel sorry for you, you moron. And while she was in community confinement, she said she had been living in the Shingletown home since January of 2023, which will be 8 months before we learned she had been released to community confinement, suggesting she was perhaps living with an ankle monitor while living in his home. Well, anyway, there's a question mark on that. Anyway, they're no longer in a relationship. Don't care about either one of them. Do not. However, the other story, she now says her sister is in an inappropriate relationship with Keith. Bombshell. Of course, it's always a bombshell, right? 42-year-old recently broke her silence on her alleged kidnapping. Is now alleging, because she's got a lot of alleging going on, that her ex-husband, Keith Papini, and her sister, Sheila, whatever her last name is, Koister or something like that, have developed a, quote, highly inappropriate relationship. How would that be highly inappropriate? She was involved. She was very involved with being on camera, just as Keith was, says Sherri, who shares her son Tyler, 15, and her daughter Violet, 13, with Keith, said of her sister in this June 11th episode of the Vallow Files. So there you go. She's on some type of television, YouTube. I don't know what it is. Then she started developing a really inappropriate relationship with Keith. They got really close, and they're still really close. They're still close, she added. I think there are a lot of inappropriate things that have happened between Keith and Sheila, and a lot of things that I've seen. She's one to talk about inappropriate. I mean, can I say the P word here? Please let me say the P word. Oh my God. So that's Sherri Papini. And one of the things, and the great question that was asked to me by, Molly's not here, but Molly asked me this great question about Vallow. So Vallow just got convicted again. Where's Vallow? Oh, Vallow, where are you? Where is she? I have a picture of her someplace in case you forgot what Vallow looks like. Maybe I forgot to put Vallow's picture up. Perhaps I did. Okay. So anyway, the question was, it says here, she said, hi, Pat, Lori Daybell. Lori Daybell has been convicted. She was convicted of murdering Charles Vallow today. That's her fourth guilty verdict. She killed her two children, her husband Charles, and Chad Daybell's wife. Also guilty of attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux. I do not watch trials, so I haven't been. So all the names are. I know the basic names. I didn't know about Boudreaux. Do you think she would have eventually murdered Chad if someone better had come along? I do. Murder was her go-to. She did not hesitate to remove anyone in the way of a new and exciting chapter in her life. There you go. Yeah, exactly. When you have a person who is psychopathic, and they have been psychopathic for a really long time with psychopathic behaviors that are constantly ongoing through their life, just because you got caught once, like Sherri Papini, she's not going to suddenly become a healthy, mentally healthy human being and lose her personality disorder. No, she's going to keep using people, manipulating people, lying about people, because that's what Sherri does. And she's always going to be the victim. And now her ex-boyfriend has victimized her now. Her sister's victimizing her now. Everybody victimizes her. So, yeah, she's not going to change. And so Laura Daybell is, and I will say, psychopath. I'm not a psychologist, and I'm not. But when you kill your own kids like the way she did, and so you got a husband, and if I can't say psychopath with her name attached to it, I don't know who I can call a psychopath. So yes, she exhibits massively psychopathic behavior, and she will continue to be that way because she didn't stop. She did one after the other when people got in her way. As I say, psychopaths, you're either useful in the way. When they were useful, they were there with her. When they became in the way, she got rid of them. And so that is her go-to. I think you said that correctly. That's a go-to. And now it doesn't mean that she's always going to go to that depending on the circumstances. No, she might decide not to if she knew it put her in more trouble than she wanted to be in because she thought she would get caught. Because a lot of times people don't think they will get caught. Now, if she's in prison, what will she do in prison? Well, I think she's going to be on the dating sites really soon. I think that'll be true. Would she cause any harm in prison? Would she get rid of somebody in prison? Would she be one of those? She eliminates somebody in prison. She might. Who knows? Or she might get somebody to do it for her if that person gets on her nerves. I mean, so what if she kills somebody in prison anyway? What's it going to do to her? So would I want to be her roommate? No. I would not. So I think that was nailed correctly as far as, yes, it was a go-to. And the other question Molly also said is that since Chad helped Lori murder the two kids and his wife, does that make them a sort of a what? Is it a team? Are they team family annihilators? A very disturbed and violent couple. Well, obviously he would be a psychopath as well. And kind of like, I liken that too, kind of like if you're in a cartel, you've got your different levels of people. You got those that are more in charge and those that go along with. And the one who goes along with usually wants to keep the relationship going, and they have to do a little bit more than the other one to keep that relationship the way they want it. So let's see, he helped her murder the two kids and well, he wanted Lori. And I guess he was willing to do whatever it took to get Lori and have her to himself. And she found him useful. And one thing I also try to point out to people, stop trying to get into every detail of a psychopath's mind. You will never do it. You'll never be successful. And I see this happen all the time. They go, this is why the person did this. No, you do. You actually don't know that. Even sometimes they don't know that. Even a psychopath sometimes say, I wasn't really sure why I did it. But I did it. So, yeah, that's why I'm just willing. If that's what they are, I know they're a danger to the community. I just believe we should do things to prevent them from hurting people, because I can't predict the next thing they might do. I can't. Nobody can. So, but you know what their bent is, and you know what they're willing to do. You just don't know if they're going to do it. Just so you keep them from doing it if you can. So. But I think she gets the men in her life to do her bidding. Yeah, but you have to pick the right ones, and that's the interesting thing about those who know how to pick the correct people. The pizza bomber case that I just did, we have that woman in there, and she kept getting these guys and one guy to kill the other guy. She manipulated men, and she wasn't a looker. So you're like, why did they do this stuff for her? And I'm sure sex was part of it, although I say she wasn't exactly gorgeous, but she was good looking. Actually, I take that back. She was pretty decent looking when she was younger. She just aged poorly because of the drugs and all the other stuff. But yeah, so everybody has something to gain. She had something to gain by using people, and the people being used had something to gain as well. So the case I just talked about down the street from me, where the couple, the 18-year-olds from the high school, attacked this man and at his store, and then tied him up, put him in his truck, and then lit the truck on fire with him still alive. And why did they do it? Why did both of them do it? And the young man, I've heard, have dark thinking, but the young girl seemed like she was not like that. But yet when you see her walking into the store to pay for the gas at the convenience store, she's smiling. And she knows the guy is tied up outside in the truck. She's smiling to pay for this gas, and she goes, and then she films her boyfriend lighting up the truck and killing the guy. Now, I'm sure her defense attorney is going to say she was abused or manipulated into helping the boyfriend, kind of the Karla Homolka thing. Oh, that Paul made me do it. I wouldn't have done it if it hadn't been for Paul. Well, you may not have done it if Paul hadn't wanted you to do it, but you did it anyway. So yes, maybe she hadn't met this guy at her high school. Maybe she would have gone on in life, and I'm going to say she's still got a personality disorder, because you don't do that kind of thing without it. She might not have committed a homicide, but she was willing to. Karla Homolka might have gone on to do something else, but she offered her own sister to Paul and got her killed. Now she is married and has children. It's lovely. She's out of prison, but her personality disorder doesn't go away. It might just change directions. But the fact that you would be willing to do it, you can't blame the other person. Oh, he made me do it, or she made me do it. No, nobody makes you do it unless they got a gun to your head. If you do it because you want them to like you, or you want them to love you, or because whatever your reasoning is, that's on you. No, don't blame don't blame the other one. Oh, how do I think? I don't know. I don't watch trials. I don't have the energy or the time to watch trials. I leave that to somebody else. She obviously failed dismally, but here's the real question. I don't think it was a stupid idea for her to do it. Why? Not because she was going to be a successful lawyer, but whoever represented her was going to lose anyway. And the evidence was so ridiculously strong. She was going to go down no matter what. But this way, she got to go down having fun. She got to play with the juries, the minds of the jury, and everybody in the courtroom. She got to play in front of the TV. She got a whole heck of a lot out of being able to represent herself. So she loved it, I'm sure. Yeah, so that's sometimes when you see people, sometimes they actually think they're good attorneys and they can actually win. But a lot of times they just want to showboat, because once one game is up, they move to the new game, and the new game may be, I'm going to have everybody watch me. I'm going to, and participate in all the stuff. I'm going to enjoy it. Huh. So, Columbine kids, how they fed off each other and made a joke of it all. Yeah, because again, when people say, oh, I just got into bad company, for example, you don't just get into bad company. You choose that bad company, and you get something out of that bad company, which is why you're hanging around them. It's just, if they repulsed you, you wouldn't do it. And if you didn't want to do what they did, you wouldn't do it. You would simply say, no, I'm not. I'm not going. I'm not doing that. I'm not getting involved in the drugs. I'm not getting involved in what creepy thing you're doing. I'm not going to help you steal a car. I'm not going to do those things, because I won't. They're wrong. They're wrong, and I won't do those things. I don't care who asked me to. I don't care whether I thought that was the cutest guy in the whole world. The minute he said, I really love you, Pat, but you want to help me kill this guy? I think my love for him that feeling of love for him would just end just like that. And if it doesn't for you, then you got a personality disorder of your own. So, yeah. Let's see. I want to talk about. I don't really want to talk about it, but talk about Harvey just for a second here, just because I'm just irritated by, the Me Too thing. I have issues with the Me Too thing because I just don't agree with the way it's being used. I want all victims of a sexual assault to have the right to and the ability to report and have something done to a person, have them brought to justice if they did something to them. I'm all for that. What I'm not for is a justice system that doesn't have proof that what the person's saying happened actually happened in the way they say it happened. And just because a person is a good actress or an actor doesn't mean that what they're telling you is what happened. So Weinstein, which, Harvey, I don't have to like somebody or not think they're a creep. I mean, I think he's a creep. Yeah, he's a casting couch creep. I have no question about that. Which is used a lot in Hollywood. I've been through this before. Yeah, yes, it's used and it's wrongly used. I mean, it's wrong. Nobody should be. I still remember the day I walked into Universal Studios because I was there, and I was invited in. The show was going to be Police Story, and I had great legs. And the guy looked at my pictures and thought I'd make a great hooker, because it was Police Story. So I was going to be, this will be a probably, I don't even know if it's a speaking part, but whatever, I would get into the union if I got this job and be my first real job, acting job outside of extra work. So I walked in there, Universal Studios, and everybody was leaving except for this guy. And he had me sit down across from him and he looked at my pictures and said, "You've got great legs." And I said, "Thank you." And then he said, "Well, how about dinner?" And I knew what that meant because I'm not stupid. I was 19 and I knew what that meant. So when all these girls say they didn't know, of course they knew. Every woman who is in Hollywood knows from the get-go exactly how the game is played out. He said, "How about dinner?" And I said, "I'm sorry, I already have a previous engagement." And he looked at me and he took my resume, which was pretty crappy, but anyway, he kept the picture because he liked the picture. He just threw the resume across. I remember this. He threw it across the desk of me and says, "Well, call me when you get into the union, baby." And that was being told right then and there, because you didn't go to dinner with me and sleep with me, because dinner was going to not be the issue. It was clearly you're going to end up having sex with a guy. Because you won't have sex with me, you're not going to get a job. That's the way it works for a good portion of people who go to Hollywood, who have no great skills, or just people that show up. They're all pretty girl, So everybody knows that. And people keep trying to say, "Oh, well, they're an innocent little person. They were 18 years old. They didn't realize it." No. When somebody says you're going to have sex with me in order to get a job, and it's not even somebody you're interested in, you know how that works. So people try to tell me that's not how it works. I'm just like, get out of here. Okay, so I'm looking at what he got just convicted of. He got convicted of one of the counts, and the other two he did not get convicted of, which I thought is interesting right there. Okay, let me find this. Hold on a second. Okay, hold on. Okay, here we go. All right. So anyway, he got convicted of. Let me hold on a second. This is found not okay. Here we go. He was found guilty in sex crimes case. Okay, let me tell you what he's found guilty, and then tell you what he's not. I'll tell you what he's not found guilty first, and then what he's found guilty. Okay, jury's verdict was split with I don't know how. Is it Weinstein or Weinstein? Yeah, Weinstein. I think it's okay. Guilty of one count of criminal sexual act in the first degree, not guilty of another count for the same charge, and with no verdict on one count of rape in the third degree. So it says that there were three different women. At the center of the case, 3 instances of alleged sexual assault, which were recounted in great detail from the witness box by 3 different women in a testimony that was high times tense and emotional. So 3 women said this is what happened to them, and they didn't believe 2 of them. Why did they believe the third one? I I mean, I'm not saying they didn't believe the women, but they didn't think the evidence was strong enough to convict somebody on what the women said. But somehow they decided the evidence was strong enough on the third woman, which I don't see any evidence that it was strong enough for her either. So it says here, this is how he was found guilty. Wait a minute. Okay, so it's one of them that is found not guilty. A 19-year-old model said he lured her to the hotel room in the promise of showing her a film script and instead forced her into sex. They found him not guilty. He lured her to the hotel room. First of all, you don't go to somebody's hotel room. Just saying. You say, I'll meet you in the restaurant. And then they tell you, call me when you get into the union, baby. And then you'll know that's what they were there for. She went to the hotel room because he was going to get her into movies. And they had sex in some manner or fashion. Whether how you prove that it wasn't consensual, I do not know. Jessica Mann, a former aspiring actress, described being raped by him. I think that was a mistrial thing. Okay, where's the one that? Okay, so then, all right. Let me go to the one that. And so here's the one that. Second. All right. So it is Miriam Haley, who is the one I think that it worked out for me. She says, okay, this is something that happened in 2006. So we're talking nearly 20 years ago. And to me, anything from 20 years ago is ridiculous because unless you've got, in my opinion, if you have a videotape, if you've got a videotape or a confession on tape, I'm good. Take the guy down. But if you don't have that, and say he said, she said, I have issues with this. Now, this one here says, during the questioning, the defense attorney got her to say that she didn't give reporters a complete picture of her complicated relationship with Weinstein after she first came forward with allegations that he performed forcible oral sex on her in July of 2006. She also alleges that he raped her in a hotel room later that same month. And now I'm sorry. I'm sorry. To me, right there and then, I'm like, I'm done. I would be done with her right there and then. If I were on a jury, I'd say, I'm finished. If what she claimed was that she said, she told him those graphic details. She told him she was having her period, and he still went ahead and performed oral sex on her, and forcibly performed oral sex on her. I'm still trying to quite figure that out, but all right, I guess it can be done. And supposedly she was traumatized, so traumatized that she went back for more. And that time, then she got raped. You see. And then apparently, it says here, she also acknowledged that he wasn't the first producer she tapped for job connections. She recounted that she had previously worked for British film theater producer Michael White, and that through White, Haley met numerous A-listers like rock stars Mick Jagger and Paul McCartney, as well as Jack Nicholson. So this is what she does to get ahead. Or give ahead. Sorry, couldn't resist. But so she goes to the hotel room with him. Somehow, he forces oral sex on her. And then she comes back for more. And she keeps contacting him by text. After she contacted him a whole bunch of times, apparently having friendly conversations with him. Hey, what's up? So she clearly wanted to be around Harvey because she was hoping that he would make her famous. And she was, in my opinion, willing to go along with the program in order to become famous. Only 20 years later, she got a chance to be famous again, or for the first time. I don't know how famous she ever was. she got a chance to be famous and maybe make a crap load of money. Interesting enough, right now, Smokey Robinson is now being accused of committing all kinds of sexual assaults on his staff. Now and I'll bring this up because again, we see stuff that's like people who the claim is years later that this happened to me. I couldn't say no. And I couldn't say no because of what? Because you wanted to be famous? Okay, so this one, and then I'll go to your comments. Motown legend Smokey Robinson is accused of sexual assault by 4 housekeepers in a lawsuit. They are seeking no less than $50 million from the R&B singer, who is now in his 80s, by the way. They claim this happened, and they're all Jane Does. I have a problem with this. I don't think if you're going to accuse somebody of sexual assault, sorry, I think you have to use your real name, because his real name is out there being accused of being a rapist. You should be willing to say, this is who I am, and not hide behind Jane Doe crap. So anyway, $50 million. Now, who were these people? They were, let's see, when did this all supposedly happen? Okay. These people, the Jane Does, were Hispanic women employed as housekeepers earning below minimum wage. Below minimum wage. Well, first of all, he's a wealthy man, so I don't know why he wouldn't pay minimum wage. I don't know if they have proof he paid below minimum wage, or I don't know if they were illegal aliens. I don't know what the issue was. Could you have taken advantage of them financially, not paid them properly? Well, I guess, but I don't know why he'd have to do it. But okay, let's say he was a scumbag and did that. As low-wage earners in vulnerable positions, they lack the resources and options to protect themselves. They did not come forward previously because they feared missing a paycheck, he said. Some of the plaintiffs worked for Robinson at the same time, and they were too embarrassed to reveal the alleged assaults. So theoretically, what they're saying is that these women had this terrible job that paid them crap, but they're willing to be raped repeatedly. Raped, not prostituting themselves and maybe getting some money for it, because that would be a different matter. You know, if you say, hey, look, I know I'm paying you minimum wage or less than that, but I'll give you $100 if you sleep with me. Then you're prostituting yourself. But that's not what they're saying happened. They're saying they just got this terrible minimum wage job and they allowed themselves to be raped repeatedly so they could keep the below minimum wage job. Like in Los Angeles, there wasn't one other place you could work. You couldn't work as a dishwasher or waitress. You couldn't work in a factory. You couldn't do any other work except be raped repeatedly at the job you're at for less than minimum wage. So this says here, the suit alleges that Robinson assaulted one woman at least 23 times from May 2014 to February 2020. 23 times for less than minimum wage. Often in places at home without security cameras. Well, yeah, I guess that makes sense. The security cameras aren't going to be in the bedroom, you know what I mean? The suit alleges that he assaulted another former employee at least 20 times during the 12 years she worked for him, beginning in 2012. And let's see. The suit says he subjected 2 of the plaintiffs to the same behavior. One other former housekeeper said she worked for him for 13 months and was assaulted at least 7 times. Oh, and he said if she refused to have sex with him, he would then have threatened to tell his wife to be mean to her. You don't screw me, I'm going to tell my wife to not treat you well. And it was a hostile work environment. He screamed at them and used ethnically pejorative language. So you work for less than minimum wage, get raped repeatedly, and you're treated like dirt and called names, but you don't go find a different job. Really? I mean, I know people can be desperate for work, but really? I mean, if you're going to get raped repeatedly, you might as well just get into prostitution and make more money. And then you only, probably for that less than minimum wage, you could maybe have sex once a week and get paid just as much in 1 hour as you might get paid for the whole week. I mean, it's just nonsensical to me. Of course, this is all happening 20 years later, the claims are coming out. The lawyers are finding these women, and I think they get them in rooms and tell them exactly what to say. And they're going for $50 million. And they're still Jane Doe's. This stuff is just irritating to me because, for one thing, I'm sorry, women, you have choices to act appropriately yourself. And if you act inappropriately and do things that that you're willing to do certain things or go certain places and go there over and over again to have sex unwillingly, that's on you. I'm sorry. I'm so sick of it because there are real victims of rape who did not do one thing that caused them to be in a situation, or they didn't go back for more because a person who's truly, truly raped, they're out of there. They are out of there. They would never see Harvey again. They would never see Smokey Robinson again. They get their stuff together and get the hell out of that home. They wouldn't. And they also said he didn't use condom. So they're willing to get like pregnant every time you rape them. I mean, what? I mean, I'm sorry. I just don't believe it. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm wrong not to believe it, but I think the jury is wrong to believe it. Because if there's no actual evidence, just because you don't like him, you think he's a scumbag, you think he uses his position of power to get women to do what he wants. You don't like that. I get you don't like it. I get you don't like him. But to me, luring somebody, hey, I'll buy you dinner, is not a crime. It's making a person think that they're gonna, if they get to know you, they're gonna have a better life. They're going to become famous. Some women will hook up with men who make a lot of money, not because they're going to become famous, but because they would like to they have a choice. I met this guy down the street and he works at PetSmart. I really don't want to, he's like really nice, but if I have sex with him, I'm going to probably have to live in a really crappy apartment. But there's this other guy and he's making, he makes about $500,000 a year. He's doing really well. And he's got this gorgeous home. He's got a really nice car. He likes fancy restaurants. If I have sex with him, if I hook up with him, I'm going to get the lifestyle that comes with him. So is that guy, or should we arrest that guy because he lured her with his fancy lifestyle and money earning ability? I mean, that's her choice to go with him. So I just thought this whole thing just drives me crazy because I know, having interpreted for real rape victims, and I did that for many, many rape victims, or true rape victims, and having talked to true rape victims as a profiler, and knowing what they went through, and the damage it did to them, and the fear it instilled in them for a really long time in their lives, that they had to deal with that memory that they really did have to deal with. They would never, never, never go back for more. That's what pisses me off. Never. So sorry. I don't. Yeah. And the other thing I just want to say is, if you have sons and you have fathers and you have brothers, the last thing, you wouldn't really appreciate that somebody will claim that you did these horrible things to them and ruin their entire life. I could have my son's life completely. Those two guys, some girl could come up and say they did this to her and ruin their life. They lose their jobs. They go, and I'm going to do that show. Somebody told me to, I'm going to do a whole show on this. It is going to be, let me find it, because it was Royal Watcher. You're the one who, I think you sent me this one. And I'm going to do a thing on her, really, absolutely. The false allegations of Eleanor Williams from a high-profile case in the UK. She claimed all these different men raped her and forced her into prostitution and sold her to people, and all of it's a lie. All of it's a lie. She ruined so many men's lives. It's absolutely one of the most disgusting cases I have ever read. But by the time they proved that she was a liar, these men's lives were completely screwed. So I don't take it lightly when women come forth and say I was raped and cannot provide evidence and go back for more. That to me disqualifies you right there. I don't believe you. Now, I'm not saying that you were thrilled about the sex you had with them, but I'm just going to say, if you go back for more, to me, that invalidates any claim of sexual assault. I just don't buy it then. And the fact that the juries go along with this stuff bothers the heck out of me. Anyway, so that's my soapbox again on that. This is true. I mean, the point being that there are people who come illegally into a country and they're sometimes trafficked by coyotes, and they're trafficked by the cartels, and they're trafficked because a lot of times because they want to leave the country they're in. They're hoping for better life someplace else. So they knowingly enter the country illegally with the help of people who are criminals. And it does two things that are terrible. One is that, first of all, they're helping support a criminal enterprise because the criminals don't work for free. So families of these people, they get the money together and pay these criminals to get them across the border. And so they're supporting criminal enterprises, supporting the cartels, like Mexican cartels, whatever cartels they're dealing with. And once they get to this country, because they have entered illegally, you do put yourself in a really crappy position because you are now in connection with criminals. And if you owe those criminals money, or the fact that they just have power over you because they are criminals, yes, you can get in a really some bad situations. Because I know in my area in Maryland, there are some people who have human trafficking across Maryland state lines, and they get an apartment in a particular area, kind of rundown area. They get an apartment, they put the women in it, and they force them into prostitution. That is true. It's not Americans get forced into prostitution like that. So people think they can, young women are getting kidnapped off the streets. It's not the way it works. So homeless girls, drug users, yeah, they get suckered into a prostitution lifestyle because they need drugs and they need someplace to stay and they need money. So they get suckered into that. But the actual ones who are in captivity, generally speaking, are people who are hooked up with criminal cartels, and then they can't get the hell out of there. And it's very miserable and horrifying what they deal with and how to escape. Sometimes they'll take away like some countries, they'll take away, like they'll come over with a passport. That's done so a lot of times in China. They'll promise them a nice job in this country, and when they get to this country, they pull their passports and say, we aren't going to give your passports back until you pay off your debt, and the debt is through prostitution. That happens. So when you're hooking up with criminal cartels, you can get in those situations. However, and then of course, if you are illegally in the country and you're working illegally, you're trying to stay under the radar all the time. But I can't believe that there would not be, if you're going to get raped constantly for under minimum wage, I'm going to say there are probably other choices you could make. So, even if you're under those situations, there are certain situations where you have no choice. But I don't believe that with these women. I don't think any of that crap happened. I think that this is a money grab, which is what's been happening lately. Rich guy. I mean, one guy after one. No, we got Cosby, then you got Smokey Robinson. You got just this. All these guys who are powerful and have money, all of a sudden, every one of them is a rapist. And quite frankly, this is what's kind of funny to me. They don't need to rape anybody. For the most part, they don't need to do that because most of the time women will go willingly. They will. And maybe it's because they think they're going to get a part in a movie, but you get too many willing women, you don't need to be raping them. You can just dump them and go get another one if they don't want to do it. So you don't necessarily need to do that. Now, could you ply them with drugs? Sure. You can say, hey, you want some Quaaludes like Cosby? And of course, the girl takes the Quaaludes knowing darn well she's going to have sex with him. But he gets them, takes the edge off for her and makes it easier for him. Yeah, that's what they do. But they don't have to rape. It's just women will line up for these guys. I'm telling you, they'll line up for them. So that's why some of this stuff is hard to believe because it's just, yeah, I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm going to just stop here and say it again. It can happen, but I want to see evidence that it happened, not just a claim, not somebody's just saying, "Oh, this is what happened to me," but yet I did get raped by him 5 times, and then I did keep seeing him, and then I kept sending him nice messages. No, I'm sorry, that to me, it's not proof. I mean, that's taking the evidence and destroying any proof of rape. And I just don't understand. It's just basically, it's like the satanic panic thing. When people decided they wanted to believe in the satanic panic, then they all went berserko about these Satanists doing things to little children in daycare, and we see some of this stuff that just these outrageous conspiracy theories, which are just so stupid. You know, there are conspiracies, but some of these are just so silly and so. But this is stuff that's promoted on the internet and in the media so that people then glom onto it. And by the time that goes to court now, the attorneys know they've got these juries who have been reading all this kind of stuff and are all into this kind of stuff. And it becomes like contagion almost that, you know, oh yeah, this all this stuff happens. This is what, you know. And yeah, you can bring people down pretty well that way. So remember the satanic panic? Yeah, McMartin, that was crazy, insane stuff that the claims were. And when I did this, I just did the show on the Keepers. I did the Keepers about the women that were in Maryland who were going to the Catholic school, and they were getting raped by the priest, and he was having the police come in and rape them and doing all this weird stuff to them. And the claims are so outrageous. And I mean, I read the woman's book, and I you know, if you haven't seen that show, go watch my show on the Keepers. And majority of people saw that show, believed what the woman, especially the main woman, was saying. That woman is absolutely fabricating everything. It's all garbage. And yet people are, oh my God, she went through so much. I'm like, no, she didn't. She's made that stuff up. And yet so many people believe it. So if you get those same people on a jury now, you can take down anybody with a person like her who comes across, they think she comes across as very heartfelt, and this is what happened to me. And so I don't know this Harvey stuff. I don't know how many of these women are just good actresses. And, you know, the funny thing is, this is what they'll do too. Sometimes there's a half truth in something. Sometimes she could have gone with him to the hotel room and he started kissing on her and doing things to her. And then he wanted to excite her, right? And she's like, and he's trying to get her turned on, which usually when women get oral sex from the guys, usually not something they complain about, right? So now he's like, oh, come on, and he starts kissing on her and she doesn't stop him. And he goes a little further and then he starts doing oral sex on her. She never said no. And then she's like, maybe she was grossed out by him, or maybe he wasn't good at it. You know what I mean? Maybe he just wasn't good at it. And she's like, stop doing that, please stop. And then she's like, then he's like, and she didn't get right away, she didn't get the deal that she was hoping she'd get from him. So now she goes home and she goes, ooh, ick. Well, ooh, ick. It's not a sexual assault. It's just an unpleasant experience. So to me, I'm sorry, then by the time you get to court, you can take your ooh, ick and turn it into just about anything. I mean, I can sit here in front of you and start crying over, I didn't want to do it. I mean, I was so young and I just, he said I had to come up to his room because that's where the manuscript was. And I didn't think about telling him to, bring it down to the restaurant. I should have done that, but I didn't because, I didn't want to go against him. I mean, he was just, come on. And you're just like, I just followed him and we got there and he started kissing me and I tried to pull away from him and I could just go on if I really wanted to. And you all believe that crap too. I never met Harvey. So, yeah, never met it. Some of your comments. Oh, wow. My grandparents had papers they got from people at church about companies to boycott because their logos had secret satanic symbols in them. Yeah, you can see something anywhere and you can believe something easily. once you go down a certain road and you're focused on that kind of thing, that's the way you see things. And again, some of it is real. That's where the problem comes in. And that's why I get so upset, because I want real victims to get justice. And if you're not a real victim, what you're doing to real victims is appalling, absolutely appalling, and I despicable, because you don't care about real victims. Then you just care about what you're getting out of it. And I find that, yeah, that really, really bothers me. And that's why Sherri Papini, people despise her, because now they know she is a liar. What she did to real victims was terrible. Because now the next woman that goes missing, you're like, I wonder if she just went off with her boyfriend, because that's what's stuck in your head now. Now you don't believe people anymore. Woman comes back and says, I was kidnapped, and now I was thrown out in the road. They're like, yeah, like Sherri, huh? And so you're losing because fake victims destroy real victims. So, yeah, just very upsetting thing to me. It drives me crazy. And so I'll do a whole thing on the because it's an amazing story. Thank you, Royal Watcher, for that one. But Eleanor Williams, she was amazingly good at what she did. I mean, she really fooled a whole pile of people and cops to begin with, because she was a good actress and she worked hard at coming up with the stories. And she even took a hammer to her own head and whacked herself in the eye in order to look like she had been beaten. I mean, she played the part. Oh, and remember, Sherri says, oh, I didn't brand myself. He branded me. I didn't want him to do it because, and people go, yeah, no, I kind of find it hard to believe that she would allow somebody to brand her on her back like that. Well, if this woman will smash her face in with a hammer, I'm going to say Sherri Papini can say, go ahead and do it, because when I show back up, I want to make sure that I look like I was kidnapped. And say, we'll do really weird things. And all of you remember and I'm blanking on the name of it. I did a whole show on the case, the woman who kept claiming she was being stalked, and then she ended up dead. And people thought she was finally murdered, but I believe nobody was ever after her. I forgot the name of which one it is, but I did a whole show on it. And a lot of people still believe she was truly stalked and murdered. No, I think she 100% Munchausen syndrome. But yeah, you can't recall the name either. Yeah, but she was willing to do a lot in order to keep the whole thing going. And that's why Sherri Papini comes back out and says, okay, I did go to meet this guy, but I didn't kidnap. He kidnapped me and forced me into this. So no, it wasn't those other women, but it was him. And then she's got her whole new story. And she can look you in the eye and she can lie like a dog straight to you, telling you all I know is I went running and then I was in the car and he kidnapped me. I don't know what happened, and all her phony story. But she's good at telling a lie. So sometimes when you hear it, you say to yourself that ex-boyfriend James, right, that she was slandering. Oh, that's the other ex-boyfriend she was slandering. She's got a lot of them. So anyway, James has got issues of his own. Okay, James is messed up. Otherwise, he wouldn't have cooperated with her. But when she says James did this to me, in other words, she's trying to tell you that although she made a mistake contacting him and let him know where she was going to be, what area she was going to be around, that allowed him to kidnap her because she was foolish, you see. And then he kept her in that room and he tortured her and did sex stuff to her. And then he branded her, and then he released her, but only if she'd keep her mouth shut and lie about what happened. And you look at this and you go, well, it could be true. In theory, she hooked up with a guy who, did have issues. Otherwise he wouldn't have kept her in the house, right? He wouldn't have gone along with the program and kept his mouth shut until the police got his DNA. So I don't know why he didn't get any kind of charges against me. He should have, like aiding and abetting. He was messed up. Do I believe he could have kidnapped her and kept her in that room? Yes, I do. She could be a whack job who got herself into this trouble with another whack job. It's possible. I don't think it's probable, and I think the whole fact that she was into wood burning and had gotten stuff from Hobby Lobby before, and yeah, and the Exodus thing she put on her back, I don't think any of that stuff came from James. So I do believe that he helped her create herself to look like a kidnapped victim. But she could, I mean, theoretically, yes. So could these women have been sexually assaulted by Harvey or by Smokey or by Bill? Sure. But the question is, do we have enough evidence? And do we convict people based on claims? And I don't understand. That's not in our system to take a claim someplace without a shred of evidence from 20 years ago and have the jury decide whether they think that the person's telling the truth or not. That's outrageous. I don't know why we're okay with it. Yeah. Oh, now that one, yes, that was what they call the Gong Girl couple. That was a freak. I think I did a show on that freaky case. Yeah. So this couple was abducted by this lunatic, and the story was so strange and so not believable that the police didn't believe them. And it took a long time for that to be proven that they actually were telling the truth. And that was one freaky case. I mean, that's such an anomaly. I wouldn't say, I mean, the guy who did it, he was an anomaly. And the methodology was an anomaly. And the whole thing was an anomaly. So I can't even, but yeah, I mean, it did make it difficult. The story is so strange. It was just hard to believe them. It was just, and that wasn't anybody. I don't know that was like Sherri Papini the concept of Sherri Papini's lies would necessarily mean that they lied. But Gong Girl was a book and movie in which the wife was lying and faked this whole thing. And this whole thing looked exactly like the movie. So, and sometimes people do base their own fake stuff on a movie. So, Sherri Papini, yes, she could base her stuff on a movie, and it was fake. This couple didn't base anything on a movie, and it was real. It's just freaky, just totally freaky. Very fascinating case. So, yeah, but I want evidence. I say the issue about evidence to me is extremely important. We're supposed to be a country bases stuff on evidence, and that's how you're supposed to get probable cause. And that's how you're supposed to get, then charge somebody with a crime, is because you have evidence that is not just claims. So I just go over and over this because I just don't understand it. I really do not. I'm gonna end this tonight by just talking about the I might do a separate thing on this. I don't know, but the people think there's a serial killer, and there's about 13 dead bodies they found. 13 bodies found within a 70-mile radius, which is claimed as a small radius, which isn't really a small radius. And it's in Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts. Okay, in all those areas. And here are 3 women. The woman on the left, I think. Wait a minute, trying to figure out who is which one on this one. The woman in the middle is supposed to be 59 years old. That must be an old picture. The woman on the right is 59 years old as well. And she actually was murdered by, who's the guy who murdered her? Is it this guy? No, that's her. That's her. And she was murdered by, where'd the guy go that murdered her? I don't know where he went to. Oh, here he is. She was murdered by this guy. It was actually her roommate. And there was a whole bunch of stuff to do with crack cocaine, and I don't know what. He bludgeoned her to death. He was dying of cancer, and and her own family says, stop putting her up there as a serial killer victim, because it wasn't, she's not a serial killer victim. It was a roommate. But the other 2 women, I don't know. And there's a bunch of other people. And so people are saying there's a serial killer out there because 13 bodies were found since January in the 70-mile radius. Well, of course, one of them we know was absolutely this one guy. Now, could he be a serial killer? Yes, but that's not likely. But it could be. I mean, theoretically, he's dead now. But so at least there's 12. Now, of the 12, we don't have causes of death for all of them. We don't know who some of them are. We don't know who all of them are. I think most of them are women, but I think there's a couple guys in there. We just don't have enough information. So they've got this whole group of people now all over the internet going, this serial killer, serial killer, serial killer. And the police are saying, we're not, but there isn't a serial killer. Now, 70-mile radius. This is actually a fairly large radius for dead people, people who OD, because we have a fentanyl crisis. People who OD on fentanyl. Could be a homeless person who just at some place and they OD. The body's not found for a really long time. The bodies were found since January, but it doesn't mean they were there. They were like not there before January. And we're talking about 3 different states. Now, yes, it's a 70-mile radius, but if you look at any area like in Washington, D.C., there are people killed. I mean, I'm here in Maryland, and I could go 15 miles away into Virginia, and there'll be some serial killer out there, but not out here. Or it could be one guy killed a couple people out there and somebody killed a couple people here, and then there's a couple of deaths in DC. They're not all related. Could they be? Sure. But it could be there is a serial killer out there. It could be there are 2 serial killers out there, and they're crisscrossing. You know, or this one did this area and this one did this area. It's possible. Or there's no serial killer, and these are just different cases where we have a bad boyfriend, we have an overdose, we have maybe a suicide, accidental death. And so here we go about the evidence issue again. For God's sakes, people, if you don't have any evidence to work with or any information, stop just putting this stuff everywhere and making claims and trying to analyze the living crap out of something. You don't even have to, I haven't even found any good information on this yet. So even as a profiler, I can't even say, if I think there might be a serial killer in the area, if I think that any of these women, you know, they were connected, I have no idea. Now, there are times when I'll say this, that the police will refuse to admit there's a serial killer in the area when there obviously is a serial killer in the area. Because, for example, in the Sister Kathy case, that she was kidnapped and murdered within like 4 days of somebody else who was kidnapped and murdered in the exact same area in the exact same way. I believe she was killed by a serial killer. I believe the other woman was killed by a serial killer, and I believe that serial killer killed both those women. Now, I don't know if he killed other people, because again, this is in Maryland in one area near Baltimore, but that person could have killed the 2 women. Then he could have moved, stayed with his cousin in Virginia. He could have killed somebody out there, and they never connected the cases. It's possible. Or sometimes you can have, I say, serial killers crossing paths. Now, if you have all the bodies found in one location, and there was a case in Canada where I think like 4 or 5 bodies ended up underneath this tree, but they were killed at different times, you see. And the police said there was no serial killer. It's like, come on now. I mean, you can't have that many people killed at different times, buried at different times, and it's going to be different people. I mean, what was there a sign outside that said bury your body here? It's a great spot. And so each killer came along and said, oh, I see a sign. I'll bury the body here too. No, obviously, if this person found a place to bury bodies, they buried them. A Long Island serial killer. Doesn't mean everybody on Long Island necessarily had to be from the same killer. No, because that long stretch of land is a nice bunch of land to dump bodies on. So you could have a serial killer out there, or you could have 2 serial killers out in Long Island, or you could have 1 serial killer and a couple of bodies dumped from just people offing at their girlfriend or something, whatever, or an accidental death, which I think the woman who started this whole thing, everybody keeps, was it Shannon? Just trying to remember now. But they keep saying, Shannon Gilbert, they keep saying that, she was murdered. I don't believe so. I believe she was psychotic state. I believe she died accidentally. But it did start this whole thing, and they found the other bodies. But so we have, in my opinion, 1 accidental death, and we got a serial killer too. And then gosh knows what else we have as well. So it can be a mixture of things, but if you're going to, so there's 2 sides to this. One is you don't want to jump to say there's a serial killer when there is not. But on the other hand, you don't want to say there isn't a serial killer when there obviously is, because that will help catch the guy. If you those two cases in Baltimore, they should have come out and said, this is definitely a serial killer. And we need to find out who killed these two women, because he's still out there. And he may be coming after you next. Also, the way a person is killed, Rachel Moran case, the way she was murdered, she was, the one who was jogging along the bike path, and the guy from Salvador, legal guy from El Salvador, killed her in a brutal sexual homicide. That guy's a serial killer. I guess it did turn out he killed somebody down in El Salvador too. But even if we know nothing, we know that the kind of crime he committed is the kind of crime a serial killer commits. He's not going to do it just once. So I would say he's a suspected serial killer. We just don't know who else he's done in. So I don't know anything about these 13. Well, I know about the one woman. The other 12, I don't know enough about them, have enough information about them, about the way they died, where they were, who they were, all that stuff, to say there's a serial killer out there. Should the police look at the cases to see if there's any possible connections? Sure, they should. But I wish that people on the internet would stop doing the nonsense that they do. I say, this has just been a day where I see a lot of people claiming to be analyzing evidence that they're not really analyzing evidence. Oh, that's funny. Long Island is surprisingly rural to people who think it's like New York City. Well, you get different parts of Long Island, so it depends where you are. But that stretch is definitely fairly isolated. Yeah, that is true. That stretch was really perfect for dumping. It really was. Yeah, it's great. And sometimes that's the problem, is that if there is a good area to dump bodies, more than one serial killer or somebody getting rid of the girlfriend or whatever says, oh, I got to get rid of this body. I'm just going to drive out there and dump this body there. And he got the same idea somebody else does. So it can happen. Yeah. Well, another league. That's a whole interesting one. It is. Downright creepy, that highway. Well, not in the daytime. It looks pretty nice, actually. It's a beachy area. It's like, it's gorgeous if you're not ending up dead along the way, What trucker? What trucker? What trucker? What for the now this supposed 13 bodies? They're saying it's a trucker. That thing is used all the time too. The thing is, people just say stuff. That's the problem. They just say stuff. Now there's a whole FBI trucker serial killer unit looking for women who are murdered by truckers who are serial killers. And why is that important? Because they have the trucker does have such a long distance he can drive, and he can pick up one of the ladies at one of the truck stops who is working the truck stop, and he can pick her up. And then instead of enjoying her company and then letting her back out of the truck, he just leaves with her. And then he's down the road in the dark. He's down the road. He's got her. He can pull off any place. He's got a cab right there, So he goes back, he rapes and murders her. And he could just drive for the next 4 or 5 hours and just dump her body in a field someplace. And he'd be so far away from where she was last seen that, yeah. And he's on the move. And by the time they find her body, which may be a month later or 2 months later, because it's just not, nobody runs into it, he's on the other side of the country. And so, so yes, there's a whole trucker serial killer unit. But just because there's some space between bodies, it doesn't prove there's a trucker involved in anything. We don't even know it's a serial killer. So that's just, again, and this whole thing is blown up hugely, and it's just, and everybody's getting involved trying to figure. No, they don't even know anything. That's what bothers me. At least, for God's sakes, wait for some information to come in. Well, that's a good point. Most people live along the I-95 corridor anyway. You need more evidence than just this kind of what? Oh, okay. Here's a question. What evidence does a real rape victim need? Well, there's definitely there's women who've been raped, who there's no question about it. They've been brutalized. They're walking home from work. They're getting off the bus, and they're dragged into the bushes and they're raped. And yeah, there's that person usually goes directly, calls the police, goes directly to the hospital, gets a rape kit done. It's a horrible, humiliating, and brutalizing experience. And and they're even hard to prove without DNA evidence. Even those are hard to prove, just because they can't find the guy usually. But if there's a series of rapes in the area that are, violent assaults like that, somebody crawling in your window and, attacking you in your home, and so a lot of it comes down to the circumstances under which it happens. The type of hard to prove rapes are usually what is considered a date rape. And that's because you have willingly, the victim has willingly gone with the supposed rapist to some location, which is private, which there are no cameras, there's no way to prove things going on there. And if she's willingly going there, from whatever happens in that private location is extraordinarily hard to prove once you do that. So sometimes people, they'll go to a bar, they'll be drinking heavily, they'll see on the camera they're going out laughing and they're on somebody's arm. They go to the guy's apartment, and then they get to the apartment. Let's say the woman says when she gets to the apartment, the guy starts creeping around, right? She's like, "Hey, I don't want to do this. I know I don't want any more. I don't want to do any more with you." And the guy, she's so drunk that she really doesn't have the strength to push him off or fight back. So he pushes her down, and she's going, no, because she hardly can move because she's like a noodle. She's like, no. And he pulls up her clothes and he has sex with her, rapes her. And then he gets off of her and says, you can go home now. How is she going to prove that she was raped? The answer is really she can't. Because how will you ever know that was not consensual? Even if she had, like, let's say some abrasions, rough consensual sex is not the same thing as sexual assault. So once you are alone, when there is evidence that you went willingly alone with somebody to their private location, it's very hard to prove from that point on. And that's why I tell women, you got to be careful of that, because it'll be he said, she said. And for the most part, when the person is not well known, for the most part, the women just go home and go, because they know they can go to the police and say, look, the guy raped me. And they're like, do you have any proof? And they'll basically say no. And they're like, well, nothing we can do about it. Because didn't you go to his apartment? Yes. Were you drinking together? Yes. And you don't seem to be like, it's like you don't have a broken jaw or anything. So no, we can't really prove anything. So generally speaking, that's when a girl goes home and goes, well, that was a bad lesson I just learned. And it's sad. I mean, it's sad. And it's the guy still is, the guy did actually commit a rape. There's no question about that, but you can't prove it. So because if you have respect for yourself, I try to tell women this all, if you have respect for yourself, you have to make choices that don't put yourself in the clutches of people like that. Now, there's sometimes, like say, if you're walking home from the bus stop because you have to go to work at night and you have to feed your kids, and you have to walk from the bus stop to your apartment, and it's 2 blocks, and somebody jumps out of the bushes, pulls you down, beats you, and rapes you. That is, that's just really, that's terrible. It's just horrible bad luck that you were the one grabbed. You had to, you weren't doing anything foolish. You just were trying to survive. And you go to the police and you try to do your best to get the guy caught so he doesn't rape other women. Hopefully you do. But it's, but proving that any kind of rape which goes on in a situation where there's a lot of alcohol and privacy, very hard to prove anything, except for we're seeing this happen with famous people, because they're coming out of the woodwork 20 years later making claims that cannot be proven, except that something has gone wrong with our system, which says if you don't like the guy and you think he could have done it, and that woman seems sad enough, then we're going to say, okay, whether it be criminal or civil. Without evidence, we're going to go with the woman. And I am bothered by this because that's not evidence. And if, yes, do I want people who are real rapists to be caught? Of course I do. But I don't want people who aren't real rapists to be found guilty of a crime that's not proven either. So as I say, it's just, I don't know why there's a hard time understanding that. And I'm not saying, sometimes life is very unfair. Life can be extremely, extremely unfair. Proving stuff is, that's a difficult thing. I wish it was better. I wish there were a better way. If we were allowed to give truth serum, you know what I mean? And the guy would have no choice but tell the truth. Yes, I did rape her. That would be great. I mean, then we could solve this whole damn problem. But that's not something that exists. So at least that we're allowed to use. So yeah, it's very unfortunate. You can't imagine lying to the police that somebody raped you? Well, gee, I guess you're not a psychopath. I'm glad, Caitlin. Okay, this is a good point. If the police notice same person has been accused 2 times, it's not a coincidence. The question is when the accusation comes out, and this is the problem with the Hollywood stuff. If when a girl is let's say you're drinking, you go to this guy's apartment, he rapes you. You go to the police, you file a police report, and you get the DNA test on everything. And they say, look, we don't have enough to charge this guy. And you might say, I understand that he did rape me, but I understand you can't charge him because you don't have proof that it wasn't consensual, but I want this on record. Then, 3 years later, some girl who doesn't know the first girl gets raped by the same guy. She goes into the police and she reports it. They go, wait a minute, I know this guy. This guy name pops up. And wait a minute, somebody said the exact was also raped. Now you might have something. The problem we have with the Hollywood stuff is that there's lawyers involved who are all behind a lot of this stuff that goes on. And so you get claims from years ago, and then somebody else says, oh, that happened to me too. That happened to the Me Too thing. That's the point. Oh, that happened to me too. Well, once you let that goes out of the gate, and that person becomes a target. And therefore, just because 2 or 3 women make the same similar claim doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean it wasn't consensual. It might be unpleasant, but doesn't mean it wasn't consensual, because you can't, it's a matter of, if once the stuff, the knowledge goes out, and these attorneys are very, very aggressive in finding more and more people to make claims against somebody once the first claim is made. So it's a real swamp as far as the way things are dealt with, and I think it's a shame for real victims. And I also want, if that person really did commit the crime, I want that guy to go down. Absolutely want him to be, I shouldn't say that for Harvey Weinstein, he did us, but apparently that's his big problem. He does go down, but he should be convicted if is proof, because yes, the casting couch is terrible and wrong, but it's not criminal. But if it crosses the line into criminality, that person needs to be charged and convicted. But you got to prove it. And it's the same thing for any kind of crime. Would you want to be convicted on something because somebody said something? A bunch of people don't like you, so the gossip people say, "Oh, I saw her robbing this guy's house," and somebody else goes, "Yeah, I saw her robbing a different guy's house," and then you go to prison for a year because some people said stuff about you. I mean, no thing called evidence. Yeah, that's a big, huge problem. And a lot of times it comes down to whether people like somebody or don't like somebody, as far as the political issues go, or the sensibilities go. Like I just did the show on Bob Crane. Now, Bob Crane, in my opinion, I think he's a psychopath. and he did get murdered by, I believe, his friend, who, after they were sexually, like, they're like they were like sex predators going after women, using his fame to get women to go with him. Now, if they went with him willingly and they had sex with whomever they had sex with willingly, again, just because I think they're both disgusting human beings, doesn't mean I think they should go to prison. Now, if they videotaped, and there's a belief that a lot of these women were videotaped without their permission, in which case they would be committing a crime. So, but just whether I like them or don't like them has nothing to do with anything. It has everything to do with a legal system has to go by evidence, not by your personal feelings on something. So, yeah. You forgot about Crane. Here's another one, and he was an early casting couch guy. And it's funny, I've seen a lot of people actually say they like Crane and they don't think he committed a crime. So why are we mad at him? Well, it's because none of those women came out like they did for Harvey and Bill and now Smokey and said he raped them. But any one of those women could say that, because they were pretty damn creepy. They could easily say that he forced us to give them blowjobs. They forced this stuff on us, and they videotaped us without permission. Any one of them could have said that. Could have been true. A lot of those women, who knows if they all, because this is a claim that all of them just couldn't wait to have sex with them, that they all love being videotaped. That's what his son says. Bob Crane's son says, oh, the women didn't mind this at all. They just loved being with him. And I'm like, they were making personal porn films with these women, and they were doing it like a lot. So how many of these women, did every single one of them cooperate? 100%? A lot of them were very, very drunk. I don't know. So, but I see people defending him, saying he seems to be a great guy, but they hate Harvey. It's like, so isn't it the same thing? So I don't know. It's just, yeah, it's frustrating. I'm frustrated. I said when I just don't see the evidence being the focal point. Yeah, claims are different than evidence. As I like to say over and over again, claims are different than evidence. Anybody can claim anything. Doesn't make it true. So, but apparently some people are willing to just simply say, we're supposed to believe. We're supposed to believe women. Well, I believe some women, and other women I don't believe at all. I don't understand why people don't understand that women can lie. Men can lie. Anybody can lie. Why do we always have to believe all women? I mean, I don't know what all women you know, but I know some women I wouldn't trust at all. Well, yeah, and also they go, not only they're rich and famous, because again, some of these women, some of them may have actually been sexually assaulted, but other ones don't mind. They're not even going under Jane Doe, some of them, some of them actually want the attention, or even as Jane Doe, they want the attention, because just like a serial killer, even if he's, he kills a woman in the park, he gets this big cheap thrill out of, first of all, knowing he did it, but secondly, that everybody out there knows about the crime and he's the bad guy and they don't know who he is. So for certain women, the attention they get by being the victim is huge for them. That they can get up in court and cry and everybody feels sorry for them, and then the cameras come around, and then the people want them to write a book. They either get a lot of money or a lot of attention. They might be Munchausen syndrome. That's what Sherri Papini does. She lies about things to get attention. So why would one not think that some other women might lie about being sexually assaulted by famous people? Because it gets them attention or money. I don't understand the lack of comprehension of that. So, yeah. And it is true, we are rewarding people for being a victim. And the sad part is, if you're a true victim, you need the support, and you do deserve the help and the concern. You're a real victim. I mean, that's one of the reasons people are into my daughter. One of the reasons she got into police work was she wanted to help people who became victims. She's worked with sex, crime. She's worked sex crimes. So she's dealt with an awful lot of women, who mostly women, but a lot of some guys too, who've been sexually assaulted. She's had to sit there in a room with the people who are telling the truth and watch their hearts break in front of them. Watch them cry. Watch them not know that they're not going to get justice, probably because they can't say even who it was, and there's not DNA that's useful, and she has to tell them we can't do anything for you except help give you some phone numbers. That's heartbreaking. I mean, so for people who actually have dealt with real victims, you know what it's really, really like, as opposed to just wanting to believe everybody just because they say something. I mean, there's just a world of difference. I should be signing off. I know I've told the story before. I'm going to tell it just one time because it just really illuminates it. So I worked as a sign language interpreter, and one night I had this girl who came in. She came into the hospital, and she said she'd been raped. She was with this guy. She was drinking, whatever. And then she said he raped her. She was really unconscious, sort of. And they did the whole thing, rape kit and everything. But her friend was there. And she, when they were out of the room, she's joking with her friend. And then she's like, oh, God, I'm so hungry. And so as soon as they finished everything, she said, let's go to Denny's. And I'm thinking, wow, theoretically, you were just raped. Even if you were half out of it for most of it, still, you were raped by somebody, did something horrifying to you, and you're interested in getting some breakfast at Denny's and laughing. Then there was another girl who came in, and she had gone to a party, same kind of situation, but a party, and she was drinking, but she said this was her story. She was walking to the bathroom, and as she walked to the bathroom, this guy came up behind her and grabbed her, opened up one of the doors to one of the bedrooms and pushed her in and slammed the door and then raped her. And then he got up and spit on her and walked out. And that girl sat in front of me. And she was from Sweden. And she wasn't wanting to eat at Denny's. She just sat there, and this is what she signed. I want my mommy. I want my mommy. That girl was raped. I have no question in my mind. She was 100% a rape victim. And the sad part was, I don't know if they ever proved it. They did all that. No, I don't know. I can't remember. I don't remember if there was the guy who used a condom. I don't remember what happened in the whole situation now. It's been years. But I hope they got the guy. But probably not. But heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. Now, I'm not saying the other girl couldn't have been raped, the one who wanted to go eat at Denny's, but she was not very believable in comparison to this girl. So once you've been with a real, true rape victim and you see what they go through, they don't call the rapist back the next week and want to have dinner with them. They don't. So anyway, all right. I'm going to go now, folks. I'll see you guys on the weekend, probably Sunday for whatever show I'm going to do. And if you're new to the channel, this is kind of a strange show tonight. I don't know why. Maybe it's the mood I'm in. But anyway, I'm glad you were here. And again, if you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. And always send me any of the cases you're very interested in me doing. And if I showed interest in doing a case before and I never got to it, just send it to me again, because I do get overwhelmed with them. Cases coming in, and sometimes I have to be reminded and think, oh, that case, I wanted to do that case. So anyway, oh, hi, Alyssa. Yeah, Alyssa's, I haven't been alive for a few months. Oh, well, thank you for still being a patron, Alyssa. I appreciate it. I'm glad you're here. So, I mean, life continues on, and sometimes we don't have time to come to all the shows, but I definitely appreciate the support for the channel. That's very nice. And good night, everybody. And let me see if I can click on the thing properly when I leave. What the heck is going on? Well, that is interesting. I'm going to say there's little technical problems happening tonight. I'm not sure why, but a little poltergeist or something running around today. So anyway, thank you again for being here, and I will see you soon. Bye.